I want to take a minute to celebrate some things happening in the life of our church, specifically with our Next Generation ministry area. Now, if you're new to Vaughn Forest, Next Generations are basically babies all the way through high school seniors. And so that's a big part of who we are as a church, but also the parents of kids and teenagers. We like to come alongside them and equip them and encourage them and remind them that they are not alone. And God's doing a lot of great things in our Next Generation ministry. So before I give you some specifics of what he's doing, let me kind of give a reminder. We talk about this a lot at Discover Vaughn Forest. We talk about this a lot at membership. We talk a lot about this at our annual members meeting at the end of the year. But here at a church, here at Vaughn Forest, at our church, the next generation really matters to us. In fact, we would say it this way: they're our first priority. A lot of times what can happen in a church, and it's unintentional, I don't think people mean to do this, but what can happen is that the kids and the teenagers kind of get the leftovers because the adults, they just keep getting put first. And here, we kind of flip that. What we say here is we put the kids and the teenagers first and the adults get the leftovers. And what I love about our church is that the adults are like, yeah, absolutely. We want to go all in with the next generation. So what does that mean? Well, they get the best facilities. They get the best staffing. They get the best resources. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, we really believe that when kids go into the world at 18 years old today, it's a lot different than the world we went into when we were 18. A lot of times what can happen in the life of a church is, again, unintentionally, is a church is raising up kids and teenagers and sending them to a world. The problem is the world that they've prepared them for is 1980. The world they've prepared them for is 1990. What we want to do is prepare kids and teenagers for the world they're walking into today. The other thing that really drives everything about how we look at the next generation is we really believe whoever wants them the most will get them. And I have to tell you this, there are a lot of organizations and entities out there that are after our kids and they're after our teenagers, and what they are after has nothing to do with God, God's word, or godly principles. And in this community, we're going to make sure that kids and teenagers always know we want them first. So somebody else doesn't show up and try to convince them of something that's going to lead them astray. And I'm so grateful to have a church like Vaughn Forest that is all in with that. So let me tell you some specifics of what's been happening. So last Sunday, we checked in 220 kids. Now these are babies through fifth graders on one Sunday. That's the most kids that we've checked in on any Sunday other than Easter this year. That's fantastic. Last Sunday, we checked in 84 teenagers, middle school and high school students in our student ministry during the 9:30 hour. Now that's far and away the most students that we have checked in any Sunday this entire year, including Easter. We've got close to 100 volunteers now serving in the Next Generation ministry, whether that's nursery, preschool, children's ministry, student ministry. So many of you call Vaughn Forest home. This ministry area is happening because of you. We only have 3 staff people in this area right now, and one of them, it's not even really the area he's supposed to be focusing on, okay? So I'll talk about that in a second. But Morgan and Kendall, who lead our kids ministry, continue to do an amazing job, but they could not do it without you and all of the time, effort, and energy you put in serving, so thank you for that. And then Chad Boak, who is our executive pastor of Ministries, is leading our student ministry right now because we are in a search for our next student pastor. I'll talk about that more in a second. So Chad's been leading this thing for a couple of months, and all he's managed to do is grow the thing. So we're really grateful for Chad and his leadership during this season. And so what I did during the month of July was I ate a lot. Isn't that what pastors do? We just eat a lot, right? So like I had a lot of meals, a lot of people. Specifically, I had 4 lunches with different parents of students in our student ministry. And I don't know the exact number, but I think if you add up all of those lunches, there are about 70 parents that came to one of those lunches, and it was awesome. We got to sit around and eat, and we did enjoy that. But then we got to talk about all things student ministry, all things teenagers. And I got some really great feedback and some super helpful input for what we need to be looking for in our next student pastor. We've heard from some of our students as well. We also have fantastic relationships with the Pike Road schools, and so administrators and coaches, they give great insight into these things as well. And we had a couple of candidates that we'd been interviewing and kind of taking a look at, but we didn't really feel like the Lord was leading us in that direction. And so ultimately, our leadership team decided to bring in a very reputable search firm that's going to help us launch kind of a nationwide search for our next student pastor. And so they're going to be here on our campus in a few weeks. They'll be spending time with some parents, some time with some students, sometimes our leadership team, and then we're going to launch into that search. And the one thing that was a shared consensus among all the parents that I met with was, let's take our time. Let's really make sure that we hear from the Lord for who it is that we add to this team moving forward, because God is up to something here. God's doing some amazing things in our next generation ministry area, and we know that God already knows who that next person is, but we want that to be the right fit. We want that to be the person that God brings our way. So I'm going to ask you to be in prayer for that. We will keep you updated along the way. We don't have a set timeline. Like I said, we want to take our time and move in God's time, but as we have progress in that search, I will certainly keep all of you posted. And so lots of exciting things that are happening in our next generation ministry, and I just wanted to take a minute to celebrate that. And then tell you one last thing. What are we looking for in our next student pastor? I think that's probably a question a lot of people are always wondering. So one of the things that we talked about at these lunches was that. So let me just kind of give you our playbook, or I'm going to go ahead and give you our playbook. Here's our playbook. We're looking for somebody that's going to come in and disciple the students who are already here. There are a lot of students in our community that need to meet Jesus, but we got a lot of students here right now who are still trying to get their faith grounded. Colossians 2 says, let your roots grow down deep. We want somebody who's going to help them continue to do that. We want someone who's going to help equip them for life beyond high school. So how do you take the tools that you can develop, whether it's reading God's word, prayer, sharing your faith, worship, and use those tools to continue to walk with the Lord once you leave school? I tell Sam, our oldest, all the time, I'm like, buddy, the things you are learning how to do right now are the same things I learned when I was your age, and they're the same things I still do today to keep me close to God. So students can begin to learn those things at a very early age. We want someone to help them cultivate a heart for what it means to be on mission. That at all times our students are on mission, whether it's at school, on the ball field, extracurricular activities, to be a contributor rather than a consumer. But we also want them to be on mission in other parts of our city, and other parts of our community, and other cities in our nation that are a little less church than Montgomery, Alabama, that we want to send them there to share the gospel. We want to give them opportunities overseas to go into nations that the gospel needs to be shared. We don't think you have to wait around to start doing that. We think you can start doing that from a very young age. And then finally, more practically speaking, we want someone who's going to really help us eventually split this into a high school and a middle school ministry. I mean, right now we have a student ministry, and it's fantastic what God is doing, but I don't have to tell you the needs of an 11th grade girl and a 6th grade boy. They're very, very different. So we ultimately want to be able to minister to those needs in more specific ways. So that's our playbook. That's what we're asking God for. I want to invite you to join us in that prayer, and then, like I said, we'll keep you updated along the way.